Thank you very much for joining us today. I think we'll get started now. We have a couple of journalists coming in a little bit late, and I think Representative Labrador will be joining us soon. Thank you and welcome to the Heritage Foundation. I'm Mike Gonzalez, Vice President of Communications here. Welcome to Conversations with Conservatives. It's a group of free market and liberty-minded congressmen who meet monthly to discuss the most important issues of the day. It is a great forum for the media and the public to find out what's on their mind. The meeting is chaired by Representative Labrador, as I said, Representative Huelskamp was here, and Representative Jordan, who's here as well. Welcome to them. It's our first meeting since October 16th, since the debacle of Obamacare became crystal clear, and since the promise, if you like it, you can keep it, became known for what it was. Today, on the front page of the Washington Post, we had another devastating story about McKinsey having warned the White House back in March that the website had problems. I think with that little thing, I can kick it to the congressman, see if they want to comment on that, or if they want to comment like many of the media want to do on the mayor of Toronto. Over to you.
Go ahead. Well, I'll start. We had in Oversight Committee, we had the Chief Technical Officer, we had the Chief Information Officer, and we were questioning them about a document. September 27th, Mr. Chow sent a CYA document to Maryland Tavern and said the website's not ready, not secure. If you want to launch on October 1st, you need to sign right here and assume all responsibility. So there are definitely a few smoking guns here. They knew the website wasn't ready. And we know America's not ready for this program.
Yeah, there was the independent contractor MITRE who CMS has the assessment that came out after October 1st, but it's based on what August and September. They said there was no end-to-end testing ever completed, and so Congressman Massey is correct. Somebody knew this thing wasn't ready, and yet because October 1st, remember October 1st is not in the law, it's just a date the administration picked. I'm convinced they went ahead and launched this knowing there were security risks at stake for Americans who got on the site. They went ahead and launched it just for political reasons. They could not admit that Republicans were right, that the American people were right, and this thing should be delayed. And then the study that came out today, the Washington Post story, I think just underscores that point even more.
I think it's important to note that Obamacare is more than a website. And we're hearing, we all know the stories of hourly wages being cut from 40 hours to 29 hours. We're seeing insurance companies leave the state, plans being canceled. We know the salesman pitch that the Obama administration put out there that you could keep the policy that you have if you like it. We know what's going on there. And just a story yesterday about college students and universities that are canceling the insurance for their students. Now, at most, we're running about $100 a year, or $50 to $55 a semester, and it was an insurance plan that universities were able to offer. Universities are not offering that anymore because it's going from $100 a year to about $1,800 a year for college students, and the college students cannot afford that. They're pushing back real hard. And this is a generation that voted for President Obama and supported this whole ACA in the past. So I think that's important to talk about today.
There's a real political calculation here, too. There are two parallel tracks that we're watching happening at the same time. One is the reality of what's happening to people's lives with health care and with the application of Obamacare. The other parallel track is the politics. And the politics are being played out negatively for those who completely got behind this train. So if you look at last week's events, when the president held his press conference and decided to rule by press conference and make his decree regarding if you want to keep your health care, you can, there were a lot of demonstrations by a lot of fellow Democrats in the days preceding, one of which was our Minnesota governor, Democrat Mark Dayton, who came out and said the president has to keep his promise that if you like your health insurance, you can keep it. And he was adamant about that. Well, over the weekend, our governor spent a lot of quality time with insurance companies in the state of Minnesota. And yesterday, he came out with a remarkable statement and said, I've talked to the insurance companies, and we are not going to go along with what the president said in his press conference. We are going to enforce the original Obamacare as it was written, because the insurance companies have told me that actuarially, this cannot work unless we have a number of people who lose their health insurance and come on to the exchanges. So we have to have the young, healthy individuals who will be forced to pay maybe twice, maybe 4 times more than what they were paying before, and it's the only way we can make it work. And it's remarkable to me that a Democrat governor would essentially take his marching orders from insurance companies and be willing to be identified almost as a puppet of insurance companies, but to reverse himself literally in just a very few days' time. And that's what we see, is this parallel universe of the reality of the Max Baucus train wreck known as Obamacare compared with the reality of the political scrambling that's going on. It's almost like 2 parallel shows. And I agree with my colleagues here. I did town hall on Saturday and talked to one young man who was paying $60 a month for his health insurance. Now he's paying $240. He had 0 deductible. Now he has a $6,000 deductible. So this is not working. And so the point is, what will Al Franken, who was the 60th vote for Obamacare, what is he going to do about making this young man whole? It's one thing to say you're taking responsibility. It's another to say what you're going to do. So what will he do about making these people whole? What will our Senator Amy Klobuchar do about making these people whole? It's really up to them. And that's why I think a lot of people need to bring their bills, bring their new premiums, bring their new costs, bring their cancellation policies, bring it to the people who voted for this and say, what are you going to do about making me whole?
Mike, I'll add one other thing as well. The initial comment or representation about the warning the White House was given is actually par for the course, given as our former governor of Kansas. I once served as, for many years, as chairman or vice chairman of the IT committee in Kansas, and we oversaw many failed projects in this administration, so I'm not surprised this was dismissed and chalk it up to more cost on that. But I do want to report that I finally was able personally to talk to someone on the phone at healthcare.gov, but the problem was they had lost my account. Personally, and I lost my account. I couldn't access it over the weekend. I'm still trying to sign up as required, and I'm just one guy amongst millions. But for this administration to know that 80 million Americans or 90 million Americans might lose their health insurance plan, and to sit up there and say again and again, I think we saw the fallout, as Michelle's mentioned, over the weekend. We saw last week here in Congress with our congressional Democrat colleagues. This is the reason it's no longer called Obamacare out of the White House. It's called the Affordable Care Act or O-Care, as I saw some media reporting, or as we say in our office, no care at all. But that's an aside. But you'll see they're just running away from this. And you look back to 2010 of the number of folks that lost their election specifically about Obamacare. I think potentially the other party is seeing this history repeating itself this next fall.
Yeah, let me just add one other thing. There was a story that came out last week in South Carolina where a gentleman had gone to the Federal Exchange on healthcare.gov, entered in all of his information. He got a call a couple of days later from a gentleman from North Carolina who actually went on healthcare.gov, wasn't hacking, wasn't searching for this information, and when he logged on, the gentleman in South Carolina's information came up, and he had a look at it. He was able to actually print a PDF file of all of this guy's sensitive information. He called him from North Carolina, South Carolina, called him and said, look, I've got all your information. The guy in South Carolina thought the guy was trying to fish and steal his information. The guy said, look, he started reading all the information he already had on him, faxed him a copy of exactly the printout that he had from healthcare.gov. This isn't an instance of hacking. This was unintentional, where healthcare.gov actually sent someone else a gentleman's private information. Real stories are coming out about this and how bad it is.
I want to welcome Representative Labrador, who's just joined us. I want to just, it's a prerogative of the chair, throw out the first question. I wonder if you want to comment on whether you think that the president has the authority to make the change he said he was going to make. Nancy Pelosi and Wasserman Schultz and the rest keep repeating the talking point that this is an administrative change. Is this an administrative change, or is this legislating from the Oval Office? Anybody want to?
It's unconstitutional. It's legislating from the Oval Office, and it has to stop. That's one thing I was talking to colleagues about last week, the potential of members of Congress filing a lawsuit against the president based upon a violation of the separation of powers doctrine. We're going to have a member who is going to be introducing a resolution opposing this as well. And we've seen this in instance after instance after instance, not just on Obamacare, but in other instances as well, where the president seems to believe that he can legislate via press conference. And if I'm an insurance company and I've already spent all the money to send letters out to be in compliance with Obamacare, now the president is saying from a microphone insurance companies have to go buy more postage and sound out another confusing letter based on what? If I'm an insurance company, I think I'd say, with all due respect, Mr. President, take a flying leap. Why should they do that? And I think that's the essence of lawlessness. And now it's our time to defend our prerogative as the legislative branch, and that's why I believe that a lawsuit may be in order.
I'm not 100% sure that it was extra constitutional, and here's why. Because the problem with Obamacare was that it gave too much power to the administration to make changes like this. So I'm reading and I'm studying on this issue, and I agree with Michelle that this president has done quite a few things that are outside of the Constitution. But what I fear, one of my biggest concerns about Obamacare was how much power it gave to the administration to make everyday decisions about 1/6 of our economy. And they did this on purpose. If you read Obamacare, line after line says that the Secretary of Health and Human Services shall have the discretion to do this and shall have the discretion to do this. And it's again and again and again throughout the document. So I don't know if this particular instance is outside of the Constitution or not. I think the law itself has given them authority that is unprecedented, where they are allowed to make decisions that the legislative body should have been doing, but they did that through the law. And I think it's one of the main reasons that we have been fighting so hard to undo Obamacare, because the unprecedented powers that this administration has and has given itself, has given the Health and Human Services Secretary, has given the IRS, has given all these different agencies, and we haven't done that in any piece of legislation in the past. I just heard a really interesting story. There was a member of Congress who was a Democrat who lost his seat because of this law. He was speaking to a group, and he told the group that it wasn't just the Republicans who were not allowed to amend the bill, it was the Democrats. He wanted to amend the bill in many different ways because he was warning his leadership that there was something wrong with this bill. The American people were going to lose because of this bill. And the Democrats were not allowed to amend this bill. And this is because this wasn't drafted by a group of House Democrats or Senate Democrats. This was drafted by a group outside of Congress that wanted to take control of the economy. And I think they have given these powers to the administration. They've given these powers to the secretaries that we're going to be fighting for generations if we don't repeal it. And that's why it's so important that we have a Senate that we can work with, and hopefully a president that we can work with in 3 years.
Thank you. Why don't we open it now to the floor? Let me remind you, if you want to tweet about this, use the hashtag CWC113. We have a question right here. If you could, when you ask a question, if you identify yourself and the organization you represent, please. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm Penny Starr with CNS News. And given all the talking points that have been going on since the launch of the website, I hope you'll allow me to go back to April 2010, after the Affordable Care Act had been signed by President Obama. And he said, if you like your insurance plan, you will keep it. No one will be able to take it away from you. That hasn't happened yet, and it won't happen in the future. And I want as many as you want to tell me whether that's a true or false statement. And secondly, what about the Americans, small businesses such as, well, not small business, but Christian organizations, businesses like Hobby Lobby, who had insurance policies that did not cover things that they found morally offensive? Will they get to keep their health care? So if you would answer.
On the second one, we had a good decision, because it's a company in our district, the 4th District of Ohio, Freshway Foods, Frank and Phil Gilardi, had a good decision 2 weeks ago at the district court level. So, obviously those, the Hobby Lobby issue and conscience rights, religious liberty rights, they're in the court system. But we were encouraged by the decision we got 2.5 weeks ago on the Freshway Foods issue. So hopefully we're moving in the right direction with the courts on religious liberty rights.
Anybody going to answer the first question?
The first question, it was a lie, and they continue to lie again and again and again. Now, there's a list of what every Democrat who has said that if you want your health care, you can keep it. And today, there's an article that came out that says that the next big issue is going to be, they also made the promise that if you wanted to keep your doctor, you could keep it. And that's going to be the next big issue. In come January, when people start realizing that they're trying to make appointments with their doctors, and the doctors say, actually, we're not supported by, we're not part of this network, there's going to be millions of Americans that are going to lose their doctors. And that, once again, is going to be proven to be a lie.
And they promised your premiums will go down to the tune of $2,500, and they promised the website would work on October 1st, and now they're promising it's going to work by November 30th, and they're backing away from that. So every single line they made, if you like your plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. Your premiums are going to go down. They're going to go down $2,500. The website's going to work October 1st. Now it's going to work November 30th. Every time, it's been proven wrong. And so I'm not holding my breath that the website's going to be working by November 30th.
The point about the $2,500 has been underplayed, but it's going to come front and center, because the sticker shock is where people live. Because when they get their premium increases and they actually have to start paying them, people have gotten letters in the mail about what the new costs will be, and quite frankly, it is absolutely killing families, because so many people have been cut back on their hours. This is just very real. People don't stay in static lives. It's dynamic, and that's the one that I think is really going to hit people, is the sticker shock, especially with the deductibility, because for young people, many have seen their deductibles triple, and so effectively, for some people that I've talked to, their deductibles are now $13,000 a year, which means they'll never get any benefit in all likelihood from their insurance policy. That's where people are going to be howling, because they quite literally won't be able to afford it. And for a lot of people, they'll just take a pass and say, let the government find me. And so people I think, are going to have more hostility toward government than they've ever had before.
I'm glad Michelle brought the deductible issue up, because that's not talked about enough. But as people are starting to sign up or at least explore where they can in the state exchanges and on the federal exchange, they're finding these deductibles are just outrageous. And so not only are they going to pay premiums that have increased 2 and 3 times from what they're paying currently, but they're seeing their deductibles triple, and they're going, so I'm going to pay $6,000, $10,000, $12,000 a year in premiums, but then if we get sick, I've got to come out of pocket and actually pay the doctors until I meet a $6,000 or $8,000 deductible. Are you kidding me? So they understand. They're starting to really grasp what their health care costs are going to be for the coming year, and they're alarmed.
And to play devil's advocate, I heard somebody make this argument that there is one way that you could look at the Obama administration and say that they were not lying. And Democrats. And that way is because they assume that big government can work. And they assumed that these things were going to happen. They assumed that you were going to be able to keep your health care. They assumed that you were going to be able to keep all these things. But what the reality is that big government doesn't work. There's no way that the government can take over 1/6 of the economy.
They don't assume that. They were told that by the president of the United States.
But that's their assumption. That's their assumption as liberals, is that the government can make these big decisions. The government knows better. They're paternalistic. They can make these big decisions because you don't know what kind of health care you need. The government knows better than you do. And that's the problem with liberalism. You either have to lie to get your way, or you have to make assumptions that are false. Either way, it's a failure. And I think that's the biggest news about Obamacare, is that it illustrates the failure of big government in America.
We have another question from the floor.
Let me ask one more thing, just make observation of the items mentioned about Obamacare, whether it's deductibles going up, the cost going up, losing your doctor, losing access to your plan. To me, the only question remaining is which of those work best in the political ads next fall?
Is anybody else? This gentleman right here.
My name is Tim Bowers, and I'm a resident of Virginia. Have worked in many ministry and pastoral situations, and I have a deep concern for people. But I also know that the United States of America is a wonderful place because of the will of the American people, because of the strength of a free marketplace, and because of our founding documents. How do we, and we are all aware of all the problems with the quote-unquote Affordable Care Act. How do we explain to an America that tends to vote for candidates offering handouts that the answer is in a strong people, is in freedom, is in liberty, is in a free marketplace?
Go ahead.
Well, you know, Republicans have offered an alternative. We've offered alternatives all along. We were shut out of the debate during the 2009 timeframe by the Democrats who rammed this down the throats of the American people. Free market principles work. And so Americans need to, and I think they're starting to realize that they need to really look at candidates and see where they stand on this issue, whether they support limited government, free markets, individual liberties, or they support big government, socialist type policies. And so Republican alternatives all along have been associational health care, buying health care across state lines like you buy your car insurance, with Progressive and Geico thriving over that model. Some sort of model like that allows folks in Idaho to have the same plan that folks in Virginia or South Carolina or Texas have. These things work. Spread the risk around through a large association. 18,000 realtors in South Carolina, that's an 18,000 person group. If they had an associational health care, they could spread the risk. To compare it, there's 18,000 public employees in the state health care system within the state of South Carolina that work for penals or corrections, work for state government in some capacity, have state health care. They have low-cost health insurance because it's a plan, it's a group plan. If you allow that association of realtors to offer that associational health care plan, they're spreading the risk over 18,000 people. They're going to have affordable health care. These are free market, simple solutions that were shut out of the debate all along, and I think that's what we need to return to.
You know, as conservatives, we have to figure out how to address those everyday concerns. You spoke first about how you care about people. And as conservatives, we need to learn how to talk about how we care about people. I just saw something on Facebook today. I don't know how old it is, but it was a gentleman who was saying the 12 reasons why Barack Obama is the greatest president in history. Every one of those reasons was because of a speech that he made. He cares for the middle class, and then he quoted a speech that he gave. He cares for single women, and he quoted a speech that he made. The reality is that the middle class is doing worse under Obama. Single-parent homes are doing worse under Obama. African Americans are doing worse under Obama. Hispanic Americans are doing worse under Obama. And we need to figure out how we can show as conservatives that we care for people, that we're not here to make them empty promises or pretty speeches, that we're actually willing to have a thriving economy where every one of them is going to be successful, is going to thrive, is going to succeed, is going to do the things that are necessary to actually have a better life. We're going to provide for them better health care opportunities. Obama promised them better health care, and he knew he couldn't deliver on it, but it was okay because the media was going to keep propagating the lie that he was telling and then tell the American people that he's the best president in history because he gave pretty speeches. And we'll have to figure out how we can actually address these everyday issues and show the American people, all of these groups who voted for Obama, that we actually care about them more than the other side, and we're not willing to make empty promises to them.
I think we have an opportunity of a lifetime right now, because just as Jeff said, we are watching liberalism crumble in front of our eyes. Raul said that liberalism is crumbling in front of our eyes. And what we have is the fantasy thinking of what Obamacare was going to be versus reality. And I'll just give you one example. This morning when I was getting ready, I was listening to my Pandora on computer, and one of the ads that came through, because I'm too cheap to pay the Pandora monthly fee, one of the ads that came through was a Minnesota company talking to mothers that you're so busy trying to bundle your kid up and get them to go to school, you don't have time to go and make a doctor appointment. You go to this website and you get to Skype real time with a doctor and get it right now. He calls in the prescription, you're done. See, I think what's going to happen is people are going to say, that's Washington, that's the big huge thing they're coming up. I just need to get my kids taken care of. And I think companies, innovators are going to come along, and they're just going to offer what people want. That is the radical American model, where we figure out our own better mousetrap. And I think that's what's going to happen. I'm all for it. So we're caught up in dealing with this big mess called Obamacare. In the meantime, real Americans are going to find solutions for real people at a price they can afford. And I think that's the revolution that I think we're going to see.
This young lady right here.
Congresswoman Politico, shifting topics for a moment. The Budget Conference Committee has met twice. There are no signs that there could be a deal. What are your preferences? Would you like to see Paul Ryan hammer something out, or do you think the better solution is to sort of not try to get that deal between Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate, and instead see something like a continuing resolution at sequester levels?
I think all of us would agree that our preference is to be able to substitute the cuts in the sequester with entitlement cuts, with, something that's going to last no more than 10 years. I don't think the Democrats are going to allow us to go there, and that's why I believe there's a consensus among conservatives that we should be asking, maybe, if we can't get there, and I hope that they're successful, is start talking about maybe a one-year continuing resolution, or a continuing resolution till the end of the year at sequester levels. And I think that's something that conservatives need to be united on, and I think the Republican conference will eventually be united on. However, I think most of us would agree that we would hope that Paul Ryan would be able to work on a deal in the conference meeting where he can actually get exchange sequester spending for entitlement spending.
I don't think they're going to agree to that without some kind of revenue, and that's why I may be pounding my fists like the Democrats asking for a clean CR on January 15th.
And the question is going to be if you guys in the media are going to hold them to that standard. Are you going to go after them when they start asking for something that's above sequester level spending and we're asking for a clean CR? Are you going to point out the hypocrisy of their move?
That's what you're referring to, the CR.
Correct.
Question back there.
Matt Fuller with Roll. Back on Obamacare, do you think that Republicans should be working to fix healthcare.gov to make Barack Obama's promises real? Or should Republicans be working to highlight these issues and try to scrap the entire law?
There's only one fix to Obamacare, and that's to repeal it. And that's the only way Obamacare is going to be fixed. If we want to spend a lot of additional money, you can throw a lot of money at the problem, and you're still going to have a broken healthcare system. It's going to be worse than what we had before Obamacare. So I think we repeal it and we start all over again. I think that's the only solution that Republicans should be for.
My concern is, how does the train wreck end? I mean, the next fix that might be required is a bailout of the insurance companies. And I want to go on the record right now as being against that, because the demographics aren't working. The sign-ups, even in Kentucky, where I'm from, 48,000 people have signed up. It's being held up as the shining example of a website that works, but 40,000 of the 48,000 are Medicaid. And I expect, if you looked in the other states, the demographics and the signups are just as miserable. And this is not sustainable for the insurance companies. The question is, will the president go to the microphone and try to legislate via press conference and create a bailout for the insurance companies when the demographics don't work?
He said yesterday that he would not give a bailout to the insurance companies, and let's hold him at his word.
Well, we're not for certain what he told them behind closed doors. It's my understanding that was a closed meeting. What is interesting from the Kansas perspective, again, the HHS secretary is our former governor. Her chief legal counsel, when she was the governor, is now chief legal counsel for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas. And I'm still waiting to see what the response is going to be in terms of the president and the secretary demanding insurance companies go out and do something that's illegal under the law, and that they're not going to prosecute for doing whatever the president tells them to do. But at the end of the day, a full repeal is the only fix. But we have some very serious oversight responsibilities. And just because it's the law of the land doesn't mean you can spend hundreds of millions of dollars to fail. It doesn't mean you can have these types of failures in the insurance market and get away with that. So there's going to be some very ongoing oversight to look very clearly at what they're doing. And, when you have a warning months ago, don't go ahead with it. And Kathleen Sebelius and Barack Obama say, we don't care. We're going to waste the money, hurt people, and just for a political, meeting that political first deadline, that to me was a bad decision, and it hurt the American people.
Well, while this train wreck is happening, there is one thing that we should try and work on, and that's the security of the website. Because the number of victims aren't just going to be victims from healthcare, they're going to be victims of identity theft and scams and phishing. And so while this train wreck is happening, we do have an obligation to try and protect people from an unsafe website.
Well, I guess I'm sort of hearing two responses, because in one breath you're saying we need to scrap it entirely, the only real fix is to repeal. At the same time, you're saying you have an obligation to fix these sort of things. That, all of you voted for the Upton bill to, make the president's promise realer, at least.
Realer?
Truthier.
Truthier.
I don't want to say real. So, but no, my point is that you guys you seem to be stuck in this place where fixing the law, adding these legislative fixes and making the security of the website better reinforces the law.
I do think there's a difference between reinforcing between the security issue and the real consequences of Obamacare. The security issue is something that I think every American, we should all be concerned about, because you're talking about the identity of people and people getting your most precious and private information. That's something that we should be concerned about. And I agree.
The best way to stay secure is to practice abstinence.
Yeah.
And just don't go to the website.
I think we have prophylactic for that. So, but I think you have to be really concerned about the security issue. The other issue, whether they admit it or not, are the intended consequences of this law. I don't think they would tell you that the intended consequence was to have people have their security breached. That was not an intended consequence of Obamacare. But having people lose their health insurance, they're now admitting that that was an intended consequence of Obamacare. Having people have higher premiums, all those things, they knew that those things were going to happen. And I don't think we should be here trying to just have small fixes in those areas. The only way to get out of the grasp of Obamacare is to make sure that it's repealed. But we should be concerned about the security of the American people.
And I'll just say that we're, a little over 45 days into the healthcare.gov. The hackers are out there, and they're going to continue to try to penetrate. So I think, again, that's just the tip of the iceberg with regard to the website failures. But, we're talking about information of Americans, the most sensitive information, and that's why it's so important for us to continue pressing on the oversight for security, whether it's Committee on Homeland Security and Cybersecurity, or whether it's oversight, or whether it's ENC. From all fronts, we need to bring the experts in and talk about security. It's that important.
This gentleman right here has been.
It's Tom Ferraro with Reuters. We change topics to immigration. What is your sense, what is your hope on immigration? Do you hope for comprehensive immigration reform next year, not with one bill, a series of bills, as the speaker says? And if not, if you come up short, could you talk about what concern, if any, you have that by not reaching out to Hispanics with this legislation, you're going to hurt yourself in future elections?
Yeah, I'll answer your last question first. This is not the way to reach out to Hispanics. To pander to a group, to a community is not the way to reach out to them. The way to reach out to them is to show them that we actually have policies in place that are going to affect their everyday lives, and that under this president, there's less Hispanics that are starting businesses. There's more people in poverty in the Hispanic community. There's people making less money than they were making before this presidency. That's how we reach out to Hispanics. So I'm tired of hearing people talk about the way to reach out to Hispanic communities through immigration reform. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. And if you pander like Democrats pander, you're going to lose their vote, because the person who's going to win is the one who panders the most. And the Democrats will always pander more than we will. So if you're going to win elections by pandering, we're actually admitting defeat before we even get started. Now, should we do immigration reform? Absolutely, because it's the right thing for us to do, and it's the right thing for America. But we need to do it in a step-by-step approach, and we need to do it in a way that actually solves the problem of illegal immigration. The Senate bill doesn't solve the problem of illegal immigration. Even under their CBO estimate, even under their own estimate, which they've been touting, you know, the CBO, how many jobs they were going to create, how great it was going to be for the economy. The CBO estimate states that there's going to be 10 million people or more still illegally in the United States in the next 15 years. That's not a solution. That's actually just a Band-Aid. So I think we're working, if we continue to work in the House on a step-by-step approach, I think we're going to be able to meet the Democrats about 80% of the way. If the Democrats are unwilling to accept the 80% approach, then they're the ones who are standing against immigration reform.
With the 80%, what are the chances that's going to include some sort of a pathway to citizenship?
That might not be there.
You're personally a favor or opposed?
You know, I think that any new pathway to citizenship should not be included. I have no problem if I have kind of a middle-of-the-road approach on this, where there should be no new pathway. The people that are here illegally should be granted a status, and they should not be prevented in the future from acquiring a pathway if they get married to a U.S. citizen or they have a job that can lead to citizenship status. But that's not a new pathway created in a bill.
I think politically, and that was part of your question as well, Tom, I appreciate that. If you look back at the last election and how well did the Obama campaign did in that community, a lot of it was about health care. About what, and it wasn't the promise about immigration reform. You know, the president had a choice in 2009. He chose not to do anything on immigration. He made that choice. And he chose to do health care. He would be, today, he might wish he had done immigration reform rather than health care. But to go back to that community and say, oh, by the way, if you liked your health, well, I can't keep that promise. So I think health care, instead of being helpful in this election for the Democrats, is obviously going to hinder them, particularly in the Hispanic community. And so, but he's desperate to change the issue to anything else. And he's desperate to change the name. You know, they've banned Obamacare as the word in the White House, and one came up once, I guess, in his press conference. They don't use the word anymore. And the media, of course, is now saying kind of O-Care, I guess they call that, you know, or back to the ACA official title. So, but politically, it's interesting to look back of the choice the president made. And I think immigrants are smart as the rest of us. They know the president chose not to do immigration reform when he had a chance. He said, I am not going to do that now. And I think what he's trying to do now is change the message and hopefully enhance the prospects of a ship that's going down very quickly on the other side of the aisle.
And he's making a good point. This is so important for people to understand. The president had a choice. He could have done immigration reform, or he could have done Obamacare. He chose to do Obamacare, a program that is so bad right now for the economy, so bad for the American people, is hurting people, instead of doing what he promised the Hispanic community that he was going to do first, which was immigration reform. He made a promise to the Hispanic community, and once again, his promise turned out to be false. So let's not forget that when we talk about immigration. And if you look, The Hill did a great article about immigration reform. When we were working on immigration reform in the House, when we had the group of 4 House Republicans and 4 House Democrats, it was the White House and the House leadership and the Senate leadership that were getting in the way of having a deal, because they wanted the only vehicle for immigration reform. They wanted it to be the Senate bill because they wanted to cram that vehicle through our throats. And we warned them. We told them, we will not accept the Senate immigration reform package. They didn't believe us because they thought that we were going to cave under the pressure. And it was once again, so we don't even have to go back to the first year of the Obama presidency. Just this year, Obama's White House and House and Senate Democratic leadership decided to stand in the way of immigration reform by preventing their own party from coming to an agreement with House Republicans.
We have at least 3 questions, so if we can keep, if I may ask the question to keep it brief. LA Times right here.
Yeah, Mike Conley with the LA Times. Congressman Gilliam, you referred to some issues you had getting onto the Exchange website. I'm interested from maybe a show of hands or however you want to address this, but how many of the members here have been able to sign up for the exchanges, or for those who haven't, do you plan to get healthcare through the exchange, or what other options?
I haven't decided because I'm concerned about the security.
Yeah, and I've been on the site and shopped around to find out what plans are available, and one thing that I'm concerned about is a portion of my premium going to pay for something I'm consciously abject to, and that's abortion. Under the D.C. marketplace, a portion of your premium will go to a national pool to help fund federal abortions. There are 2 plans that I've been able to ascertain on the D.C. marketplace that I could sign up for, and that's a Blue Cross Blue Shield multi-state plan and an Aetna plan. So I've gone to that link to find out I don't want any of my money to go pay for something like abortion that I'm abject to. So I haven't signed up yet, but I have done the research.
I have not been on the web. I mean, I'm going to follow the law and go into the DC shop like the law requires, but we have not been on the website. And I just want to underscore this. There's all kinds of, Congressman Duncan and others have said, you know, if you like, you can keep in all the other problems. But on the security element, recognize the story today and the hearing last week. The administration, someone in the administration knew the website wasn't ready. I understand the website's not the big issue, not as big as some of these other things, but it's still the fact that they knew and went ahead and launched it and put millions of Americans' personal information at risk. That's the story about the website, in my judgment.
This lady right here, quickly.
Penny Sargent with CNS News. This is a question about DC and immigration. Mayor Gray is poised to sign into law a bill that would allow people who are in the country illegally to get a driver's license. And my question for all of you is that part of that law going into effect, there's a 30-day review by Congress as to whether or not that law can go into effect. Do any of you want to comment on that?
I don't know much about it, so, yeah.
Well, what it is it would give them a driver's license. It also would have markings that said this isn't for federal purposes, so that they couldn't get into federal buildings, they couldn't get on I think it also has to do with travel. But basically, in the District of Columbia, they would be issued a driver's license so they could drive in the District of Columbia, even if they're in the country.
Yeah, this is news to me, so I'm just going to have to look. I don't know much about that, so I apologize.
No comment?
Thanks for raising awareness.
Yeah.
This gentleman back there, and then.
Chris Deaton from Regular Politics. There was a Quinnipiac poll that was released last week that showed 18 to 29-year-olds kind of in a broad swath across issues when it comes to healthcare, foreign policy, the economy. The president doesn't crack 40% in terms of approval ratings on any of them. So it seems right now there's a potential captive audience among that demographic. I mean, this is kind of for all of you guys. Do you think that there's anything conceptually that the conservative movement can do to capture some of that group at this particular point in time?
I just want to share a quick story, and I've shared this back in our district about that demographic, and it's from our family. I tell folks, I was giving a speech and I said, you know, I work in the same town as Senator Paul, you know, in the same business, vote in the same building, know Senator Paul, like Senator Paul. But I found out about the day he did the filibuster on the drone issue, asking a pretty simple question: can your government use a drone to kill you if you're an American citizen on American soil without due process? And the Justice Department couldn't answer the question for 24 hours, if you remember. But I found out about the filibuster when I'm walking back to my office and I get a text message from our 23-year-old college senior. And the message said, "Stand with Rand." I'm like, Rand must be doing something. So I turn on the TV. And sure enough, he was doing a filibuster about that very question. But after the fact, it struck me, 23-year-old college seniors got more important things to do on a college campus in the spring of the year than listen to some politician talk forever. but it struck a nerve, and it goes right to the numbers you're citing. So I do think there is a huge opportunity for our party, for conservatives, to reach out to younger Americans, and particularly on the liberty issues, the Bill of Rights issues, freedom issues, just like Senator Paul was doing that very day. So I think it's a huge opportunity, and we can do that in a way that doesn't take anything away from what our party's about: strong defense, lower taxes, less spending, traditional values, strong. We can do that, and I think it's something that we have to understand.
Yes, the answer to your question is yes. There's a golden opportunity right now for us as a party to reach out to these demographics, especially young people. Young people, if you talk to them, they're fiscally conservative. They're concerned about their future. They're concerned about the debt, the deficit. They understand that if they're going to be working and employed in the future, that they're going to be paying for these expenses. But they seem to think that we don't care about them. And it goes back to the earlier issue that it's just because one party gives prettier speeches than we do that we tend to lose that demographic. We need to figure out a way to reach out to them. You know, Massey and I spoke to a group of young libertarians, what was it, about 2 months ago? There were 500 young people in that group. We talked to them for about an hour and a half. It was one of the funnest experiences that I've had in Congress. I mean, we were cracking jokes, we were having a good time, and we were talking about really important issues that matter to them. And they were very excited to hear from 4 older guys about these issues. We need to reach out to them. We need to do something that I don't think we have done as conservatives and Republicans. We tend to know who agrees with us, and we only go to those demographics, and we only talk to them. We need to stop going to these groups, 2 weeks before the election. We need to start going right now, talking to these groups and reaching out to them and trying to figure out how we can better have a communication with them. And I think they'll realize that they agree with us more than they disagree.
That's how I won a 7-way primary, is I engaged that demographic, and I had them making phone calls for me. And last night I spoke to about 150 young college students in, I think it was Arlington, and they were very engaged. I mean, they're listening. One of the flaws in the design of the socialist system known as Obamacare is you actually have to write a check.
Yes.
And all the other forms, come out of your paycheck, like the taxes and things like that. And these young folks are going to have to start writing checks that never wrote a check to the government for a plan that they're never going to receive any benefits from. Now, my concern, my dystopian future that I'm worried about with this demographic is 3 years from now, when we have a presidential candidate and he promises to repeal a program that they've paid $15,000 into and never been to the doctor once. Are they still going to be on our side? Are they going to say, like people do with Medicare, I paid into that, I don't want you to take it away? And I think that's what the president's sort of banking on. If he can just ram this thing through and get these youngsters to sign up, that in 3 years they will be invested in it. And that's the real danger that we need to stop.
This young lady right there. Go ahead. Yes.
Oh, great.
You.
Great. Sarah Gonzalez of the AgriPulse. This is a different topic for the day, but what needs to happen through a Farm Bill conference to get your vote on a farm bill?
Industrial hemp. I mean, that's also one of those issues that that reaches out to the young people. It's not about drugs, it's about jobs, and it's about states' rights. And that's something that could be in the Farm Bill. It was an amendment. I think you voted for it, Jordan.
I don't remember. That's not the top of the list on the farm bill. But for you.
She asked what would get my vote.
What would get his vote.
There you go. Don't forget, as you know, 79 to 80% of the Farm Bill is food stamps. I think on a lot of the conference time is being spent obviously working out some Farm Bill differences between the House and Senate. I hope they would do the right thing and move in the free market direction. But unless they're serious about dealing with the only entitlement that we're actually going to take on in this year, and that would be food stamps. They have to have serious reforms. I think the House votes has demonstrated that. I think Chairman Lucas recognizes that. I think the Senate recognizes that. But it's going to have to take some serious reforms, and that's going to save some serious dollars. And it's one thing to sit in a budget committee, for example, and talk about, gosh, what we would do long term. Well, what we would do is what we're going to do hopefully the next couple weeks, and actually has some real food stamp reforms that promote jobs, promote personal responsibility, and promote work, particularly for able-bodied adults. That's what I'm looking for in there, and maintain our direction moving in towards more markets and less government control on the foreign policy side.
And that's an 80% issue. And I have people who call into my office, constituents, I've advised my staff, when they're upset about cuts to food stamps, and they've been misled by the media. They don't realize that the Senate bill already has cuts as well. We're talking about how much to cut the program. I've advised my staff to ask if they are for a work requirement for able-bodied individuals without dependents. And it doesn't matter who calls in and what side of the issue they're on, they're all for that. And I remind them that's what I'm for putting in the bill. And we need to stick with that. Hopefully that's an 80% issue, and hopefully that will make it through the bill.
Our calls run the same way, and when you put out the work requirement, people say, yeah, that should be part of it. And I think one thing we need to be aware of is just the increase of temporary assistance to needy family. It's supposed to be temporary, and it's become more permanent, and that's something I think we've got to address. I think that's what the Farm Bill does as well.
Political again?
After the shutdown, you guys were very complimentary of leadership. It's not always been the case. A little farther removed, looking at other issues, Obamacare. What are your feelings right now on leadership? Is that sort of was that a high water mark during the shutdown? Has that changed at all? Or do you feel that consistency is?
Since we have to bring this to a close, so Roy just ask one brief question, and then we have the panel answer everything. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. Ask your question, and then they'll answer both questions.
Congressman Lambert, you just said a couple minutes ago, well, one of the things conservatives have to do is show people that they care about people. Help me on this. I want to switch topics again. The Senate last week overwhelmingly passed with bipartisan support a bill to outlaw discrimination against gay workers. Your speaker says he doesn't want to bring it to the floor. Polls show most Americans, most Republicans support the law. Why do you guys oppose this?
Okay, if we can have, somebody answer both political and Reuters.
Okay. Your question, remind me your question again, was?
Leadership.
Right now.
I praised them during the shutdown. I praised them after the shutdown. And if you look at what they're doing right now, they're trying to have a strategy so we can be united in December and January. And I think as long as they continue to do those things, they continue to listen to us, they continue to do the things that are going to keep us united, they're really warning people in the conference that we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves on the sequester. So they're standing with us actually as conservatives, saying that the sequester is an important victory that we have had. They even brought in Mitch McConnell to the conference today to talk to us about this issue. So I think they're doing the right things. We're not going to agree with them 100% of the time. What we want to always see is a strategy. You guys always talk about, the media always talks about how we had a difference of opinion in tactics. Well, sometimes the problem is that we don't see the strategy. If we see the strategy, and I think we're seeing a good one moving forward, I think we can support them, even if we don't agree with them 100%. So I would say that things are going well.
I think in reference to leadership, actually in reference to both questions, as long as our leadership is actually focused on our principles, and that's what unites us, the Republicans in general will do well in Washington, and in my opinion, more importantly, do better back home. And that's what I think folks like to see at whatever age they are. And so I think during the month of October, as we attempted multiple times to keep the government open, and Harry Reid certainly did not want that with his votes, our failure to allow some votes. I think we showed what Republicans are for. And that's what we did not do, in my opinion, a year ago. Not for sure what we were for, other than we were against something. And so I think in this case, in both cases, I appreciate leadership, especially when we're focusing on principles, and that's how we win and actually get better policy through.
And the principle with ENDA is religious liberty. It's this principle we talked about earlier relative to Obamacare and why you have businesses like the one in our district, Freshway Foods, who sued the government. We take that seriously. That's First Amendment. That's what this country is about. No one wants discrimination. Everyone should be treated fairly and equally, but you have to respect the religious liberty rights, and that's why I think the Speaker said what he did about that legislation. legislation and why I agree with the Speaker.
But there's an exemption for religious groups.
Well,
Well, there's an exemption in Obamacare, too. It's a question whether you believe these folks, and there's 75 lawsuits over that exemption, as you know, so very serious principle about
yeah,
religious
Bart
liberty.
Stupak thought the exemption was good in Obamacare, too, right?
And it's
like
also an
that.
issue that should be addressed at the state level.
The members, some of the members have to leave, so I'd like to end it right now. Some of the ones that can stay, can stay. You guys can come and speak to them individually. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But
Thank
then
you, Mike.
thank you to the
Thanks to
media. But then-
Heritage as
thank
well.
you.
Thank you.